What happens when the greatest story ever told reaches its breaking point? The Chosen, the series that has transformed how millions of people see the life of Jesus, is now entering its most dramatic and heart-wrenching chapter yet, Season 6. For years, viewers have walked alongside the disciples, felt their doubts and hopes, and witnessed the miracles that turned fishermen, tax collectors, and sinners into world changers. From the first moment Jesus said, "Follow me," the series has carefully built an emotional and spiritual journey that resonates with both believers and skeptics alike. Now, that journey approaches the most crucial moments: betrayal, fear, and the path to the cross. Season 6 isn't just another continuation. It's the bridge between the miracles of Galilee and the agony of Gethsemane. It's the season where shadows fall heavier, where enemies close in, and where every disciple must face the ultimate question: do I truly believe? In many ways, The Chosen has done what few Christian projects have ever managed. It has broken through denominational lines, cultural barriers, and even Hollywood expectations. By bringing raw humanity to biblical figures, it allows us to see them not as distant icons, but as flesh and blood people who wrestle, stumble, and search for meaning. Season 6 will push that humanity to the limit. This is the season of conflict and consequence. The religious leaders, alarmed at Jesus' influence, can no longer tolerate his message. Rome, ever wary of uprisings, watches him as a potential threat. The crowds that once cried out in joy will begin to turn. And among his closest friends, loyalty will fracture. And one of them will make the decision that changes history forever. But Season 6 is not just about betrayal or darkness. It is also about courage, mercy, and the unwavering love of a teacher who knows that his hour has come. It is about the clash between worldly power and divine purpose. It is about the heart of the gospel being revealed, not through glory, but through suffering. If you've ever wondered what it felt like to stand in the middle of history's most important week, to watch events spiral toward the inevitable, then Season 6 will take you there. This is the calm before the storm, the moment before the world turns upside down. And so, as we dive into this new season, we'll explore its central themes, its characters, and its powerful storytelling choices. We'll look at how it connects to Scripture, how it sets the stage for Season 7, and, most importantly, what it means for us today. Because The Chosen isn't just a series to watch, it's an invitation to reflect on faith, fear, love, and sacrifice. And Season 6 may be the most unforgettable chapter yet. Every season of The Chosen has carried its own rhythm. Season 1 was about introductions and first steps. Season 2 expanded the ministry, showing the ripple effects of Jesus' presence. Season 3 deepened the conflicts, while Season 4 and 5 sharpened the tension between Jesus and the religious authorities. But Season 6 is where everything converges. The tone shifts dramatically. Joy gives way to tension. Curiosity turns to hostility. And faith is tested under the weight of fear. At its heart, Season 6 explores 4 interwoven themes that give it both its dramatic power and its spiritual depth: escalating conflict, betrayal and power, faith under trial, and love in the face of darkness. 1. Escalating conflict. Season 6 brings the long simmering tension to a boil. For the Pharisees, Sadducees, and temple leaders, Jesus has crossed a line too many times. He has healed on the Sabbath, claimed authority over the law, and challenged their vision of religion itself. To them, he isn't just a preacher, he is a dangerous disruptor. But this conflict isn't only theological, it's also political. The Roman authorities, represented by figures like Pilate, watch nervously as the crowds swell around Jesus. Any hint of rebellion could bring chaos, and Rome would crush it with force. Jesus becomes a man caught between religious fury and imperial paranoia, a figure both adored and despised. This rising storm is not portrayed as abstract. The Chosen grounds it in very human moments: whispered counsels in darkened rooms, secret negotiations, and fearful disciples realizing that following Jesus is no longer safe. Conflict is no longer on the horizon. It is at the doorstep. 2. Betrayal and power. Few themes strike harder in Season 6 than betrayal. For centuries, Judas Iscariot has been remembered as the villain of the gospel. But in The Chosen, his story is not painted in black and white. It's layered with pain, ambition, and tragic blindness. Season 6 dives into the psychology of betrayal. Why would someone who witnessed miracles turn against the Master? Was it greed, disillusionment, or a misguided belief that he was forcing Jesus to act? By exploring Judas's humanity, the series forces viewers to ask, could I, too, fail in the same way? Yet betrayal isn't limited to Judas. The theme of power, how it tempts, corrupts, and distorts, runs through every corner of this season. Caiaphas seeks to preserve his authority. Pilate seeks to preserve order. Even Peter and the disciples wrestle with their own vision of what power should look like. The clash between human ambition and divine mission becomes a driving current that cannot be ignored. 3. Faith under trial. If earlier seasons showed the joy of following Jesus, Season 6 shows the cost. For the disciples, faith is no longer a matter of leaving fishing nets behind. It is a matter of life and death. As threats increase, doubts creep in. Some disciples want to fight, others want to flee. Peter, with all his passion, struggles to reconcile his boldness with his fear. Even those closest to Jesus, like John and Mary Magdalene, must wrestle with what it means to stay faithful when everything feels like it's falling apart. This theme resonates deeply with viewers today. Faith is easy in times of peace. It becomes real when tested in fire. The Chosen uses the disciples' struggles to mirror our own, our fears of loss, rejection, or suffering. And in doing so, it invites us to consider how we respond when faith costs us something. 4. Love in the face of darkness, amid betrayal, fear, and hostility. There is one unshakable reality: the love of Jesus. Season 6 does not portray him as a distant, untouchable figure, but as a teacher who continues to heal, to teach, and to embrace even as the cross looms ahead. His love shines brightest when the night grows darkest. He forgives when others condemn. He welcomes when others exclude. He kneels when others demand power. This theme is not just theological, it's emotional. Viewers are reminded that love is not proven in comfort, but in sacrifice. The disciples may falter, Judas may betray, enemies may conspire, but Jesus' love remains steadfast. That love becomes the anchor of the season, foreshadowing the ultimate act of sacrifice that will come in the next chapter of his story. Taken together, these themes give Season 6 its heartbeat. It is not merely a story of events leading to the cross. It is a profound meditation on the human condition. Conflict shows us our divisions. Betrayal shows us our weakness. Trials show us our fear. And love shows us the answer. This is why The Chosen resonates so deeply. It doesn't sanitize the Gospels or turn them into distant legends. It makes them real, messy, and deeply human, while pointing to something greater than humanity itself. One of the greatest strengths of The Chosen has always been its characters. By giving us personal, humanized portraits of people we usually only know from Scripture, the series helps us see their struggles and victories as our own. Season 6 takes that storytelling to its most intense level yet. Every major character faces a crossroads, moments of decision that will define not only their lives but the entire narrative of salvation. Jesus, the calm at the center of the storm. At the heart of Season 6 is Jesus himself. Yet, unlike other portrayals that focus mainly on his divinity, The Chosen emphasizes his humanity. We see him laugh with friends, weep over loss, and wrestle with the knowledge of what is to come. Season 6 highlights a paradox. Jesus knows the storm is coming, yet he walks into it willingly. He continues healing the sick, embracing the marginalized, and teaching crowds even as his enemies plot his downfall. His serenity contrasts sharply with the fear of his disciples and the rage of his opponents. This contrast reminds viewers that love is most powerful when it chooses sacrifice. Jesus is not swept away by events. He embraces them, showing us what it means to surrender to a higher purpose. Judas Iscariot, the tragic descent. If Season 6 has a central anti-hero, it is Judas. From the beginning, The Chosen has painted him as intelligent, resourceful, and even likable. But in this season, those very traits twist into a pathway of betrayal. What makes Judas's story so heartbreaking is that it isn't told with one-dimensional villainy. Instead, we see his gradual unraveling, his disillusionment with Jesus' refusal to seize earthly power, his impatience for change, his subtle compromises that eventually lead him into the shadows. Viewers may find themselves sympathizing with Judas at times, understanding his frustration or his yearning for revolution. That's the genius of the storytelling. It forces us to recognize the seeds of betrayal within ourselves, impatience, pride, or the temptation to push God's hand. Season 6 doesn't excuse Judas, but it does humanize him, making his ultimate choice all the more devastating. Peter, Simon, the struggle of loyalty and fear. Peter has always been one of the most relatable figures in The Chosen. Bold, fiery, and deeply devoted, he is also impulsive, prone to fear, and haunted by his failures. In Season 6, Peter becomes a living portrait of tension between faith and weakness. He wants to protect Jesus, even fight for him, but he cannot escape his own human fragility. His arc foreshadows his infamous denial, a denial that doesn't come from hatred but from fear. For audiences, Peter embodies the uncomfortable truth. We can love Jesus with all our hearts and still stumble when the cost becomes too high. Watching Peter wrestle with this inner conflict will no doubt strike a chord with viewers who know what it means to be both passionate and broken. Mary Magdalene, faithful witness from her first appearance. Mary Magdalene has been one of the emotional anchors of The Chosen. Season 6 continues her journey as a figure of unwavering devotion. While the disciples waver, Mary remains steadfast. She listens, prays, and clings to Jesus even as the world around them darkens. In many ways, she represents the viewer, the one who chooses to stay close, even when answers aren't clear and danger grows stronger. Her presence in Season 6 is a reminder that faith is not about understanding everything. It is about choosing to remain. Mary embodies loyalty born of love, and her role will prepare audiences for her later place at the cross and the tomb. John, James, and the other disciples. Season 6 also gives depth to the group dynamic of the disciples. John continues to grow as the beloved disciple, quietly observing and recording, serving as a calm presence amidst chaos. James wrestles with leadership and responsibility. Thomas, Nathaniel, and the others reveal their fears in different ways, making the group feel like a real circle of friends under pressure. Each disciple reflects a different aspect of the human response to crisis: denial, anger, doubt, or courage. By spreading out these reactions, the series allows every viewer to find themselves somewhere in the mix. Caiaphas and the religious leaders. Season 6 doesn't shy away from showing the perspective of Jesus' opponents. Caiaphas, the high priest, is portrayed not simply as a villain, but as a man deeply invested in protecting his people and his power. To him, Jesus is a threat, not only to religious authority but also to the fragile peace with Rome. By exploring Caiaphas' motives, The Chosen avoids caricature and instead reveals the tragic irony in seeking to protect his faith. Caiaphas blinds himself to the very one who fulfills it. His fear of losing control becomes the very thing that drives him to oppose the Messiah. Pontius Pilate and the shadow of Rome. Though Pilate will become more central in Season 7, Season 6 begins to foreshadow his role. As the Roman governor, he embodies the cold calculation of empire. His presence is a reminder that Jesus' fate isn't only a religious matter, it is political. By weaving Pilate into the narrative now, The Chosen sets the stage for the ultimate clash of kingdoms, the Empire of Rome versus the Kingdom of God, taken together. These character arcs make Season 6 one of the richest chapters of the series. Each figure, from Judas to Mary, from Peter to Caiaphas, reveals a piece of the larger tapestry. It is a story of courage and cowardice, loyalty and betrayal, hope and despair. And through it all, Jesus remains the still point, the one who absorbs all fear, all sin, and all opposition with a love that refuses to break. Season 6 of The Chosen is designed as a bridge between the miracles of Galilee and the agony of the Passion. While earlier seasons balanced moments of joy, humor, and teaching with rising tension, this season leans heavily into suspense, betrayal, and looming tragedy. The narrative unfolds like a tightening spiral. Each episode pulls the viewer closer to the inevitable climax, the betrayal in Gethsemane. Along the way, the audience experiences not only the external conflict between Jesus and his opponents, but also the internal battles within the hearts of his closest followers. Below, we'll walk through the likely story arcs and climactic moments of Season 6, not as a dry summary, but as a journey that viewers will feel in their bones. Episode 1 to 2, The Ministry in Motion, The Shadows Growing. The season begins with familiar rhythms, Jesus teaching, healing, and gathering crowds. The disciples continue to marvel at his authority, but cracks are already visible. Every miracle draws admiration from the people and fury from the religious elite. A moment of joy. Jesus heals the sick, perhaps a child or a leper, and the crowds erupt in celebration. The disciples bask in the glory of their teacher's power. A moment of warning. Caiaphas watches from a distance, whispering to his council, "This cannot continue." The seeds of a plot are sown. Foreshadowing Judas, he begins asking subtle questions about money, about influence, about why Jesus refuses to use his power more forcefully. His discontent is quiet, but growing. Already, the tone is different. This is no longer the carefree ministry of earlier days. The air feels charged, like a storm on the horizon. Episode 3 to 4, Conspiracy in the Shadows. As the season progresses, the narrative pivots to Jerusalem. Here, the temple leaders gather in secret. The Sanhedrin debates the Jesus problem. Some argue for caution, but Caiaphas insists if Jesus continues unchecked, Rome will intervene, and the nation will be destroyed. These episodes may feature tense, candlelit meetings, full of whispered arguments and sharp declarations. This is political drama at its finest, and The Chosen excels at making these ancient councils feel alive. Meanwhile, the disciples sense danger. Peter suggests carrying weapons. John urges patience. Thomas worries aloud, and Judas listens carefully, storing away every word. Here, betrayal becomes not just an act, but a process. Viewers watch Judas slip deeper into isolation, torn between loyalty to his teacher and his growing conviction that Jesus' way will fail. Episode 5, The Final Miracles, before the darkness closes in completely. Jesus continues his works of mercy. These final miracles carry a bittersweet tone. The raising of Lazarus, if not already covered in season 5 or earlier, could serve as a major set piece. This miracle, more than any other, pushes the leaders into action. If he can raise the dead, they reason, then all will believe in him, and so the decision to kill him solidifies. Another possible moment. Jesus heals a blind man near the temple. The act sparks a furious debate among the Pharisees, who accuse him of blasphemy, while the healed man boldly testifies. For viewers, these scenes highlight the tragic irony. The more good Jesus does, the more determined his enemies become to destroy him. Episode 6, The Betrayal Takes Shape. This is where Judas's storyline reaches its chilling pivot. Perhaps we see him approached in secret by temple officials. Perhaps we watch him wrestle alone in the night, muttering about how Jesus refuses to take decisive action. What makes this moment powerful is not the act itself, but the hesitation. Judas doesn't leap into betrayal, he slides into it. The money, the promises, the pressure, they pull him step by step until he agrees to hand over the master. Parallel to Judas's descent, the disciples gather with Jesus for teaching. Here, he warns them of coming trials. His words are clear. The Son of Man will be betrayed. The disciples argue, protest, and deny, but the audience knows the betrayal is already underway. Episode 7, Preparing for the Passion. As the season nears its end, the narrative slows down, heavy with anticipation. Jesus speaks more openly about his death. The disciples are confused, even frightened. Some insist he is exaggerating. Others beg him to avoid Jerusalem altogether. Peter's bold vow. He swears he will never abandon Jesus, foreshadowing his later denial. Mary Magdalene's quiet faith. She clings to his words, even when she doesn't understand them. Tension in the air. The city prepares for Passover, but beneath the celebration lies dread. This episode may end with a haunting image. Judas slipping away into the night, his face shadowed, his resolve hardening. Episode 8, Finale, Gethsemane. Everything leads here. The garden, the prayer, the betrayal. The Gethsemane sequence is one of the most sacred and cinematic moments in the Gospels, and The Chosen will undoubtedly treat it with reverence and emotional weight. The prayer. Jesus falls to his knees, sweat like drops of blood. His humanity is raw. He pleads for the cup to pass, yet submits to the Father's will. This is the emotional peak of his earthly struggle. The disciples' weakness, exhausted, confused. They fall asleep, unable to stay awake even in the hour of their Lord's agony. Viewers will feel the sting of disappointment, not just in them, but in themselves. The betrayal. Judas arrives with soldiers, his kiss sealing the fate of the Messiah. The moment is devastating not only for Jesus but for the audience who has walked with Judas for seasons. The arrest, torches flare, swords clash, and Peter lashes out, cutting off Malchus's ear. Jesus heals the wound, even in the moment of his arrest. One last act of mercy before chains. The season ends in silence, the disciples scattering in terror, Jesus led away in bonds. The screen may fade to black on Peter's anguished face, or Judas's haunted eyes, or Jesus's calm surrender. Why this climax matters. Season 6's conclusion isn't the resurrection, that glory will come later. Instead, it ends in despair, silence, and loss. And that is precisely why it matters. By allowing the season to close on betrayal and arrest. The Chosen forces viewers to sit in the darkness, to feel the weight of humanity's failure, and to wrestle with the cost of love. The cliffhanger is not merely cinematic, it is theological. It invites audiences to long for redemption, to yearn for the dawn of Easter. What makes this arc so gripping is that it doesn't just tell the story, it makes viewers feel it. The growing dread, the small betrayals, the whispered counsels, the quiet prayers, all of it builds into a crescendo that crashes in the garden. By the finale, the audience isn't just watching a show, they are standing in the garden with Jesus. They are holding their breath as Judas steps forward. They are weeping as the torches carry him away. This is storytelling that transcends entertainment. It is participation in the most important story ever told. Season 6 of The Chosen is not comfortable viewing, and it isn't meant to be. This is the season of shadows, of unanswered prayers, of fear and betrayal. It doesn't wrap everything neatly in hope, because history itself didn't. The disciples didn't know what was coming. They only felt the crushing weight of loss as their teacher was led away. But that's precisely why this season matters. It reminds us that faith isn't forged in moments of triumph. It's refined in the fire of trial. The disciples faltered, Judas betrayed, Peter denied, and yet the story wasn't over. God's plan was moving even through the darkest night. For viewers today, Season 6 offers a mirror. It asks, when the world turns against you, when faith costs you something, when the night feels endless, will you still stay close to Him? It doesn't give easy answers, but it does offer the truth. Love holds firm even when everything else crumbles. And as the season fades to black with Jesus in chains, it leaves us longing for the next chapter. Season 7 will bring us to the cross, the tomb, and the greatest victory in history. But we're not there yet. We're standing in the garden, watching the torches disappear into the night. This is the storm before the dawn, and by walking through it with the Chosen, we are reminded that darkness never has the last word.